To some, Dubai's development over the past 30 years can be seen as what humans can do with enough money. Turning a desert into a city in that amount of time is nothing short of a miracle, but how it was truly done makes all that praise go away, as it's genuinely shocking. Dubai is a city that if you took a time machine and went back 30 years, you'd find nearly nothing apart from a single highway in a desert with some buildings and streets coming off of it, which is a far stretch from what populates the land now. Now known as one of the richest cities in the world with the largest skyscrapers, highest rated hotels, giant commercial buildings, and beautiful coastlines. All this development comes at the necessity of the United Arab Emirates, whose current largest income is in oil. However, they knew this wouldn't last as the resource depletes and the world becomes less reliant on non-renewable energies. To fix this, they decided to create Dubai as a tourist capital, and to an extent, this has worked. Whether it was the best idea to make it around the idea of opulence and indulgence is up for moral debate, but either way, that's what they've done. So, what sets Dubai apart as a city from any of the other cities of opulence? Well, that would be cash flow. Whilst Las Vegas has its flashing lights and live shows, Dubai has projects and media stunts. From the Palm and World Islands to police driving around in supercars, Dubai for the last 10 years has continued to catch the attention of the world's news. All this is a feedback loop. It gives the city more exposure so they can continue funding more projects like these. This being said though, these projects rarely take the environment or safety of those who make them into consideration. To create the artificial islands like the Palm Islands or the World Islands, large boats had to collect sand to dump it into the ocean to build out the islands. Well, thank God, Dubai is located in the desert, right? So they could easily just dig up the sand from the desert or use the cleared out sand from other building projects. Well, no. The sand needed for building land in the ocean is different from the sand found above sea. The sand in the desert is too fine to be used for terraforming, so instead, they have to collect the sand from the ocean floor. While this might seem like a harmless process, it causes permanent and vicious damage to the underwater ecosystems. This is due to plants and animals getting caught up in the excavation, and it's not any better when they put the sand back down the ocean, as you can't really give a fish or a plant an eviction notice, and they tend to get buried alive under the tons of sand. Not very fun. Unfortunately, this has also led to the death of 1 square mile area of coral reef, and coral reefs are something we are already losing at a rapid rate. Over 50% of the world's coral reefs have already died, and a further 40% are expected to join them. As for the city's architecture, some people just hate it. Whilst I do personally find buildings like the Burj Khalifa impressive, the city's design of Dubai is pretty bad. Like, I've made better looking cities in City Skyline. What bad city planning has led to is these flat areas or low buildings being put on the same street as a skyscraper. And whilst this isn't the most groundbreaking issue, as these low areas will probably join the skyscrapers, assuming that the economic growth continues in Dubai, it's definitely not the nicest thing to look at. And in case you needed a sign of how actual UAE citizens look at Dubai, only 11% of the city's domestic population is from the country. The rest of the numbers are made up from immigrants. In actuality, the largest population by nationality in Dubai is Indian, and this isn't by chance, which leads us into Dubai's dark secret. I will warn you now, this dark secret is genuinely and truly disgusting. Writing this video has made me feel a little bit depressed about the whole situation. It will, however, change your perspective of the city and the UAE in general, and it might be important for you to understand the whole situation. Have you ever wondered how a city could be built with such opulence in just a few decades, when most building projects in any other city take years to even happen, never mind the whole city? Well, that would be the one glaring problem Dubai has. Its large Indian population is due to what they call kafala, which roughly means sponsorship. This means that construction companies in Dubai sponsor people from poorer neighbouring countries like Egypt, India, and Bangladesh to come over with the prospect of work in the world's richest city. These workers are usually the one building the giant skyscrapers, and they are part of the city that is completely hidden to tourists. How this works is companies hire agencies in the home countries of the workers with the promise of a better life, with more income to support their families within the best city in the world. But this comes at a cost. The work visa, travel, and such cost $2,000 to $3,000 US, which is combined the amount of an average Indian's wage for 10 to 14 months. Is this legal? Well, surprisingly, by UAE law, no. So what's being done about it? Nothing, of course. They get around it by paying the agencies to do it outside of the UAE, and it benefits the UAE to have cheap labour, so they don't do anything about it. The next step is truly disgusting. Once the workers have arrived in Dubai, the companies they are now working for will confiscate their passport. This essentially traps the individual inside the UAE, and without the passport, it is legally impossible to travel. And there is no way around this too. This is also illegal by UAE law, but they don't even have a workaround for this. They just do it and the UAE completely ignores it. The average immigrant worker works for 12 hours a day and usually for 6, if not 7 days of the week. Compensation for this work is $175 a month, which works out at around 50 cents an hour, which is actually lower than the average wages back in India. In case this wasn't bad enough, wages are commonly held for months on end, which, due to the debt acquired from the workers moving out to Dubai from the agencies, leads to their families not being able to buy necessities. Many workers do not have enough money to even buy food to survive. This has only been made worse in the last 2 years as the COVID pandemic has decreased tourism in the city. Oil prices too have crashed from the pandemic, and they are the main other source of the country, which has only negatively affected these workers. One of the workers, when interviewed by The Guardian newspaper, said that most of the workers rely on food donations made by on and off visitors, but when these donations and these visitors don't come in, they have to starve. The Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative has said that more than 10 Indian workers working in these conditions and in places like Dubai are dying daily, and this is just due to the living conditions they have to endure. On top of this, at least 2 Indian workers a week commit suicide in this country. The accommodation that these workers are put into is a little less than a room with multiple bunk beds inside of them. Privacy doesn't exist here. Some of these places don't even include beds, only what seems to be a mattress laid out on the floor, but it wouldn't surprise me if that wasn't even what was being used. All this is just within a few miles of the Burj Al Arab, the famous 7-star hotel which is located on its own private island. And sure, this isn't the only example of modern slavery. It can be found in pretty much every single country, but at least most countries are doing something about it. It doesn't feel like the UAE has any interest in stopping the exploitation that's going on in Dubai for as long as it positively affects the city and the country's growth. And unfortunately, that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. The only hope for the situation is that the home countries that these workers are living in increases so they don't feel the need for what is essentially a slavery internship that you pay for. However, even that wouldn't fix the problem, as these agencies will just move to the next country that has a desperate populace, most likely Africa. So remember, the next time you're booking your vacation, is the glamorous life that Dubai tempts you in on truly worth the human suffering going on underneath? Is a stay in the world's tallest building whilst you can see the slums on the outskirts of the city that hold 20 men in cramped rooms really worth it? Or is eating a Michelin-star meal whilst the workers who built the building you're in are starving worth it? Maybe the only true way that anything can put a stop to this is if the money isn't coming into the city, and then development will cease. Let me know what you think below, or how you could see the situation getting any better in Dubai. But with that said, I will see you next time.